Hi there, my name is Emily. Welcome to my thrifty kitchen. Today I have a really awesome video. I made dinner 6 nights this week for my family for only $15. I have 2 young kids that don't eat as much, but I made these recipes big enough that they would be able to feed 2 older kids and 2 adults, 3 adults, whatever your family would need to be full. You can work off of these recipes for that. The rules that I gave myself were that I couldn't go over $15, not by a penny, not by a quarter, 15 or under. I don't have sales tax on food in my state, so that did make it a little bit easier for me. Another thing is I can use pantry staples. Nothing crazy. Like I'm not going to use an entire bag of sugar or something like that, but just a little bit here and there to help season things up a little bit. Also, I could only go to 2 stores for this. I could have probably made things a little cheaper if I shopped around a little bit more, but just to make it a little bit more challenging, I wanted to stick with 2. I picked Walmart and the Dollar Tree. I think I did a pretty good job. So let's get into that and I'll show you what I got.
Okay, so let's start with what I got at Walmart. The tofu was $2.13. The turkey was $1.98. A pound of pinto beans for $1. The green onions for 96 cents. A pound of carrots for $1.08. I took them out of the bag because the bag was really gross. Almost right at a pound for the russets. It was 85 cents for these. The 2-pound bag of self-rising flour was $1.54. The chili starter tomatoes were 88 cents. And the green beans were 64 cents. And then for the stuff we got at Dollar Tree, I just got the pepper stir fry, the 2 pounds of rice, and the beef ramen. They have the chicken if you prefer, but I just think the beef works better for what we're using it for. And then obviously all 3 of these were $1.25 a piece. And that brings my grand total to $14.81 for all of this stuff.
I also have a jalapeno. I forgot to put this out and in my total because I went to Walmart yesterday, so I completely forgot about it. This was 13 cents, so that would bring my total from $14.81 to $14.94. So we're almost right on the money.
I'm starting off this week by prepping the beans and turkey ahead of time. I feel like doing that sometimes make dinner preparations each night a little more simple. I'll be cooking the beans in an Instant Pot, so I don't need to pre-soak them, but I did wash and sort them. I'm using one of the beef ramen packets to season the beans, so I'm adding that and 1 teaspoon of salt, and I'm cooking those with 4 cups of water on high for 40 minutes. For the turkey, make sure your pan is nice and hot before adding the meat. I'm also using one of the ramen seasoning packets, and that's it for seasoning. I'll just add more to it as I need for each of the dinners this week.
Meals later this week. Okay, it's night 1. Dinner 1? Whatever. I'm making beans and rice tonight. I've got the rice started behind me. I'm making it on the stovetop. 3 cups of rice, 6 cups of water. I did 2 big heaping tablespoons of chicken bouillon powder and 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm making extra rice because whatever rice we don't use tonight, I'm saving that to make fried rice tomorrow. I think it's a universal truth that leftover rice tastes better with fried rice. I'm not messing with that. Also, make sure you wash your rice. The rice from Dollar Tree is dirty. I don't care. Every single time I've got it, it's like some of the dirtiest rice I've ever used. But once you wash it, it's fine. Because the rice is going, let's get started on the beans.
For the jalapeno, I'm going to de-seed it and dice it up really small. My kids do like a little bit of spice, but the baby's still pretty sensitive, so I am taking the seeds out. Feel free to leave as much or as little of them as you want in there for this part. Into a hot pan, I'm adding a little bit of oil, one big handful of the onion pepper mixture and the jalapenos. Then I'm gonna salt and pepper this. I'm giving it a good stir and letting it cook for a couple minutes before I go ahead and add half of the beans and half of the turkey that I cooked the day before. To season it, I added about a tablespoon of vinegar, some chili powder, cumin, garlic salt, and parsley flakes. I'm also putting in about a half a cup of water so that everything doesn't dry out while it's cooking together. The beans and turkey have been cooking for about 15 minutes and the flavors are really starting to come together. I'm adding another quarter cup of water to this just to make it a little more saucy and cook it for another 5 minutes, and then it should be ready to go. These are done. They look delicious. They smell even better, I promise. And our rice is done. So let's plate some of this up.
This is what it looks like. It's a good sized bowl. There's a lot of food in here. There's still easily 3 portions the size left. Okay, now I'm biased because I love beans and rice. I love all kinds of beans and rice. I could eat it every day, weekly. But in a pinch, this really basic recipe is delicious. I'm excited to see what we come up with the rest of the week. Okay, let's get started with dinner too. We're gonna have fried rice tonight with the rice that is left over from last night. I am going to use the tofu in this recipe. I don't have a tofu press. All I do is get a clean dish towel, wrap it up, put it on a plate, and put something heavy on top of it. That always works out really well for me. I'm gonna make a quick marinade here and put the tofu in it. And then I'm also going to chop up a few veggies and get everything going.
To make the marinade, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, a little ground ginger, and some bagel seasoning because I don't have sesame seeds. I have a packet of crushed red pepper that I'm putting in here, as well as a couple tablespoons of water. I'm going to stir this up and set it aside while I slice up the tofu. After the tofu is sliced up, I'm laying it flat into a dish and pouring the marinade over the top. I'm going to let it sit for a while I get everything else ready. For tonight's dinner, I'm using 2 of the carrots and 3 green onions. I'm cleaning these up, dicing them for the stir fry. Into my pan, I'm adding the carrots first to let them cook for a couple minutes, and after they're soft, I'm adding a handful of the onion pepper mixture and the whites of the green onions. I'm going to salt these and let them cook for about 5 minutes. After the veggies are cooked, I'm crumbling about half of the tofu into the pan and letting it cook for about 10 minutes until it's warmed through and has a little color. If you haven't had tofu before, crumbled up like this, it's a really nice egg substitution. Once you get the rice in, season it with a little bit of soy sauce, some ground ginger, chili powder, and garlic salt. Let this cook until it gets crunchy in spots, but try not to stir it too often or it might get mushy. Here's everything plated up with some green onions on top. This was so good and my family loved this dinner.
Hello, welcome to night 3. This one requires just a little bit of forethought. Cooking the potatoes ahead of time. You can boil them if you want to. I think it adds way too much water and I would not do that. I like them baked, but I just do it in my Instant Pot because it takes way less time. I washed them, poked holes in them, and then I put them in the Instant Pot for 15 minutes with about a half an inch of water, and then I let it slow release.
While the potatoes are still slightly warm, I spend what seems like an eternity scooping them out of their skins. When that's done, mash them up really well with a fork or masher and add 1 cup of the self-rising flour as well as 2 tablespoons of oil. Feel free to add any additional seasoning you might like. Knead this into a dough and section it into 4 pieces, rolling it into a snake shape and cutting them into the desired size. You can add some flour to the work surface if your dough is sticky at all. Side note, this is essentially a gnocchi recipe, but I wanted them to be more puffy and fluffy like a dumpling. So if you want to use more flour and make it more of a denser dough like a traditional gnocchi, go ahead and do that. And just so they don't stick to one another, I flour these a little before putting them on a plate to rest in the fridge while I get the pot of water going and the sauce started. Feel free to use butter or whatever fat you have, but I had a bunch of bacon grease in my freezer that I needed to start using up, so I put a couple tablespoons of that in the pan before I add the rest of the ground turkey that I had and a handful of the onion pepper mix. I went ahead and added some salt and pepper to that and let it cook for a few minutes while the veggies softened up. When those were ready, I added the can of chili tomatoes. Now, because these have so much chili seasoning in them, I added a tablespoon or so of brown sugar just to balance out the flavor a little bit and make it more of a pasta sauce. While that sauce is simmering, I'm getting the dumplings out of the fridge to boil. I'm not sure why I didn't change the camera angle. Sorry that you can barely see it, but I'm adding these to boiling water, and all it takes is a couple of minutes before they start to pop up. Once they're all floating like this, add a cup of that starchy water to your sauce before you add all of your dumplings into it. This dinner was so good and flavorful, and it was very filling. My only complaint was that I think I cooked my dumplings a minute or two too long, but aside from that, everyone loved it and I had enough left over for lunch the next day.
Tonight, dinner 4, we are going to have bean burgers and flatbreads. I'm going to show you how to make both of those things.
For these burgers, I'm using 1 carrot and 1 green onion, and I'm slicing them up with a little olive oil and salt and pepper, and I'm giving them a little extra flavor by roasting them in the oven. While those were roasting, I'm getting my flatbreads going. The flatbread recipe is 3 cups self-rising flour, 3 tablespoons of oil, and 1 cup of cold water. Mix this up until it's shaggy and start kneading it with your hands for a couple of minutes until the dough comes together. This isn't a long process and it's way more simple than you might think. When the dough has come together and is no longer shaggy, cover it with a towel and let it rest for a couple of minutes. Use this time to get your pan nice and hot and use cast iron if you have it, but if you don't, it will be fine. Once your dough is ready, divide it into 8 pieces, roll up each piece into a ball and set it off to the side covered with a towel so they don't dry out. Roll out your flatbread into your desired shape and make sure it's fairly thin. When your flatbread is ready, bring it over to your hot pan, lay it out, and cook it for about 2 minutes until it starts to bubble and the bottom has brown spots. Flip it over and repeat the process on the other side. When it's done, I run a stick of butter on top of mine, but it's not necessary. Put them on a plate and cover them with a towel while you cook the others. To store these, put them in an old bread bag or whatever you have. I leave a paper towel to soak up any condensation so they don't get wet. Now that the veggies are done, I'm making a quick aioli for the burgers with the roasted tops of the green onions. Chop them up really small and add them to 2 heaping tablespoons of mayo, 2 tablespoons of oil, a teaspoon of Dijon, and salt and pepper. Mix it well. The other veggies I'm dicing up really small as well to add to the remaining beans from the other day. You can add this all to a food processor, but I'm just mashing them up by hand. I'm seasoning this with about a tablespoon of jerk seasoning, but use whatever you have that you like. I'm adding a tablespoon of flour to help act as a binder, then forming these into 6 patties. I cooked these in a medium heated pan for about 5 minutes on each side until they were nice and crispy. I also put the flatbread in the pan to heat it up a little bit before serving. When they were ready to go, I put a big tablespoon of aioli on the flatbread and served my husband's and mine with 2 burger patties in each. And even my husband, who's not typically into bean burgers, said that they tasted good, which is high praise coming from him.
It's night 5. I'm just gonna make ramen noodles. It's gonna be super duper simple. I'm gonna cook the rest of that tofu. I'm gonna cook it in my air fryer, make it crispy. I'm also going to, I already peeled this the other day. It's sad. So I'm gonna peel this. I'm gonna wash this and slice it up really good. I've got 2 green onions left. I'm gonna slice these up and I'm gonna cook the ramen in a pot. I only have the 3 seasoning packets left, so I'm gonna do the 5 ramen packets to the 3 seasoning packets and add everything into the pot and put the tofu on top to serve it. And that's it. This is what it looks like. It's a huge bowl of noodles. It smells amazing. I forgot to press record when I was plating it up, but there is sriracha, sesame seeds, and the green onion and the tofu on top. It smells amazing. Let's try it real quick. Seriously, instant ramen is so delicious if you just add a couple things to it. It's amazing. And the tofu is really, really good because it's been soaking in the marinade for a couple days. Got it a little crispy in the air fryer. It's delicious. And if you don't like tofu, just don't put it on there. You still have a ton of food.
To start the soup, I'm adding the rest of the onion and pepper, the last carrot diced up, some of this all-purpose seasoning, and letting that cook for a few minutes. I wanted something crunchy like a cracker to put on top of this, so I'm slicing up into cubes the rest of that flatbread that I had, spraying it with a little olive oil, some all-purpose seasoning, and toasting it in my mini oven until they're nice and crispy. And to finish off this soup, what the veggies are nice and soft, I added a 1/4 cup of washed rice and 8 cups of water with 4 tablespoons of chicken bouillon powder. I let that come to a boil and reduced it to a simmer until the rice was cooked and it was ready to eat. This made a big pot of soup that was plenty for our family for dinner, and I had enough for some leftovers the next day. The crackers on top were nice and crunchy, which added some texture, and we were able to use up all the rest of the veggies that I had left over from earlier in the week.
This is what we're left with. The fact that I even have leftovers and was able to feed my family for 6 nights is kind of crazy. So for the rice, all I did was cook it that one night and what I had in the soup. So if you just went ahead and saved a 1/2 cup or 3/4 of a cup of rice, you could just make the rest of the rice right ahead at the beginning of the week, and then you'll use all of it up and you'll have more for meals. The flour, there's probably 2 cups left in here. You could make biscuits if you have lard or shortening or butter. You could make noodles. You could make more flatbreads. This could be used for any number of things to feed your family, or just save it for another time. But that's everything. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you gained any knowledge or inspiration from this, please consider subscribing and leaving a comment below, and maybe even giving me a thumbs up. But I hope I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.